Hey guys, welcome to Beklædt's YouTube channel. If you are new to this channel, then please hit the subscribe button so you never miss out on new video guides, tips and tricks and much more. My name is Iben and in this video I'll show you how I sew the dress Ahorn. This wrap dress is intended for knitted fabric. The dress has feminine pleats on the front bodice, long ties around the waist, a 70s inspired collar, long sleeves and an asymmetrical skirt. You can buy the sewing pattern for this dress and the blouse Ahorn on my website beklædt.com. We need fabric for the dress. I'm using a dark chocolate brown pique jersey in modal polyester and elastane. Knitted pique makes the right and wrong side of the fabric identical. The fabric has a nice stretch, but it also has a firm feeling. I bought the fabric at Stuff Shop in Denmark. We also need matching thread. And then I recommend to sew with a jersey needle. This sewing pattern is developed for knitted fabric that has a stretch percentage of 35 to 50%. If you don't know the stretch of your fabric, it's easy to measure. Cut a piece of fabric along the width of the fabric that is about 20 cm long and 4 cm wide. Place the fabric next to a ruler and stretch it until you feel the resistance. As shown here, I can stretch the fabric until it reaches 27 cm. To calculate the stretch, I divide 7 with 20, which is 0.35, which means that the stretch percentage of the fabric is 35%. First step in the sewing guide is to find the two front pieces and transfer the position of the front pleats onto the fabric. Close off the pleats and push the pleat towards the side seam on the wrong side of the front piece. Stitch the pleats in place by making a stitch 5 mm from the edge. Bind the back piece and fold it in half so the right side is facing up. Place a pin after the notch on the pattern piece. Sew the pleat in place by stitching directly down for about 2 cm. Place the back piece flat on the table so the right side is facing up. Press the pleat to either side around the stitch and secure it with pins. Find the two yoke pieces. Decide which piece you want to be visible when the dress is finished. Place that yoke piece on top of the back piece, right sides together, and place pins along the horizontal edge. Find the second yoke piece and place it on top of the wrong side of the back piece, so the right side of the yoke is facing the wrong side of the back piece. Attach with the same pins. Stitch the yoke in place with a 1 cm seam allowance. Find the 2 front pieces and place them flat on the table so the right side is facing up. Pin the front piece to the top yoke piece along the shoulder seam, right sides together. Fold the back yoke piece so the right side of the back yoke is facing the wrong side of the front piece along the shoulder seam. Pin it in place using the same pins as before. Do the same on the other side and stitch the pieces together. It's a good idea to finish off by pressing the seams on the yoke with your iron. I finish by overlocking along all 4 side seams of the bodice. If you don't have an overlocker, you can use a zigzag stitch instead. Find the 2 collars and place them on top of each other, right sides together. Place pins and stitch the collars together along the 2 short edges and the long horizontal edge with a 1 cm seam allowance. If you want to, you can add interfacing to the collar before stitching the pieces together, which will make it more stiff, but I don't think it's necessary. Trim away the corners and turn the collar around so the right side is facing up. Make sure that the corners are nice and sharp, then press the collar with your iron. Decide which collar should face up when the dress is finished. This side will be your upper collar. While the upper collar is facing up, top stitch around the edges about 7 mm from the edge. On my sewing machine, that means I use the width of my presser foot as my seam guide. Find the bodice of the dress. Mark center back of the dress with a pin. You should also mark the notch on the front piece. Find the center back on the collar. Place the collar on top of the bodice so the undercollar is facing the right side of the neckline. Remember to correctly match center back on the collar with center back along the neckline, as well as the position of the collar on the front bodice. Pin the collar and sew it in place about 5 mm from the edge. Now it's time to finish the 2 side seams on the bodice. Remember that we are making a wrap dress. This means we need to create a hole by which we can pull one of the waist ties through. This hole needs to be at the right side seam. Measure 5 cm from the bottom of the front and back piece on the right side seams only and place 2 pins. Turn the pieces around so the bodice is right sides together. Place pins along the side seam, but remember to leave the bottom 5 cm on the right side seam. Pin the whole left side seam together. Stitch the side seams, but remember to leave the bottom 5 cm on the right side seam. Press the side seams open with your iron. Place pins around the open hole to keep the seam allowance in place. From the right side, stitch around the hole about 7 mm from the edge. Find the 2 sleeves and fold them in half, right sides together, lengthwise. The sleeve cap is identical on both sides of the shoulder notch, which means that both sleeves can be used in both armholes. Stitch the side seam on the sleeve. I finish by overlocking the side seam on the sleeves. I also overlock the hemline at the bottom of the sleeves. Find the shoulder notch on the sleeve, which is right at the center. Find the bodice and place it flat on the table so the right side is facing up. Mark the shoulder notch on the yoke, which is exactly 2 cm above the shoulder seam. Find one sleeve and place it next to the armhole. Pull the sleeve into the armhole so the right side of the bodice is facing the right side of the sleeve. Make sure to match the shoulder notches with each other as well as the side seams. Pin the sleeve in place. Stitch the sleeve to the armhole. Finish by overlocking the seam allowance around the armhole. Do the same on the other side. Find the waist ties, which are 2 pieces of fabric that are 10 cm wide and as long as the suggested length in the written guide, or the length you prefer. Fold the pieces in half lengthwise, right sides together, and place pins. At one of the ends, you need to cut into the fabric at a 45-degree angle. Stitch the tie using a 1 cm seam allowance. Remember to let the uncut short end of the tie stay open. Trim the seam allowance around the corners of the tie. Then turn it around so the right side is facing up. Press the waist tie with your iron. Do the same for the other tie. Place the tie on top of each front piece along the short vertical edge, right sides together. The tie should lay 1 cm above the waistline and 1 cm below the neckline. The raw edge of the tie should be aligned with the vertical edge of the front piece. Place pins and stitch each tie to each front piece about 5 mm from the edge. Find the back skirt and place it flat on the table so the right side is facing up. Find the right and left front skirts and place them on top of the back skirt along each side seam, right sides together. Pin the pieces in place. Stitch the 2 side seams and finish by overlocking the seam allowance. Find the upper part of the dress and the gathered skirt pieces. Place the skirt on top of the bodice, right sides together, and pin the pieces together by the waistline. Remember to correctly match the side seams with each other. Push the seam allowance from the skirt towards center back. Stitch the pieces together by the waistline and finish by overlocking the seam allowance. I also overlock the hemline on the skirt on all 3 pieces. Find the narrow 4 cm wide ribbons, which will be used to bind off the neckline and the raw edges of the skirt. In the written guide, you'll find a table with the exact lengths of binding needed in each size. Place the neckline binding flat on the table so the right side is facing up. Place the right side front skirt binding on top, right sides together, and pin the pieces together along one of the short edges. Using tailor's chalk, draw a wide angle down towards the center of the binding. This angle should be about 130 degrees wide. Find the left side front skirt binding and place it on top of the neckline binding, right sides together, and pin the pieces together by the other short edge. Draw the same wide angle onto the fabric. Stitch along the 2 angles and trim away the seam allowance. Then fold the binding in half lengthwise, wrong sides together. Find the dress and place the binding on top of the neckline, right sides together, so the raw edge of the binding is aligned with the neckline. Find center back on the neckline binding by folding it in half and match it to the center back on the dress. Remember to also place the binding correctly according to the right and left front skirt pieces, as the right front skirt is slightly longer than the left front skirt. Then find the angle on the binding, which should be matched to the corner on the front piece. Please note that the neckline binding is shorter than the neckline. This means you should stretch the binding when you pin it to the neckline. It's important to distribute the difference in length evenly across the whole neckline. When you have finished pinning the binding to the neckline, you can continue down each front skirt. You shouldn't stretch the binding on the skirt pieces. When you reach the bottom of each skirt, you need to fold the bottom hemline of the skirt 2 cm towards the waistline, so the right side of the hemline is facing the right side of the skirt. Make sure the binding has the same length as the skirt. Then pin the binding to the hemline. Stitch the binding to the dress all the way around about 7 mm from the edge. Trim away the corners on the front piece. Then fold the binding around itself on the wrong side of the dress so the seam allowance from the binding is hidden under itself. Place lots of pins. From the right side, stitch the binding in place 1 cm from the edge. If you find it very difficult, you can also turn the dress around so the wrong side is facing up, whereby you can see the binding the entire time. Bring the dress to the ironing board and press the hemline of the skirt 2 cm towards the wrong side. You should also press the hemline of the sleeves 1 cm towards the wrong side. Finish by stitching the hemline on the skirt about 2 cm from the edge. Then stitch the hemline on the sleeve about 1 cm from the edge. And that was it. I hope you'll like your new dress and use it a lot. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram @beklædt_sewing. Thanks for watching!